Good morning. Greetings from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore. This is the fourth module on the topic discrete Fourier transform. In the first module, we got introduced to the DFT. In the second module, we tried to relate the analog and the discrete frequencies. In the third module, we took up some examples and we saw that we can compute the spectrum of a signal from its Fourier, from its DFT. Today, we shall focus on certain properties of the discrete Fourier transform. We know that given a discrete time signal x of n, the DFT is given by x of k, where the DFT coefficients x of k are given by sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi nk by n, while we can get back the signal x of n from the DFT coefficients using the inverse DFT expression given by n. So this is the expression for the DFT, while this is the expression for the inverse discrete Fourier transform. Now we are going to see a few properties of the DFT. Mainly we are going to see the periodicity. Then we shall see the symmetry. Then we shall see how to convolution sum, how we can evaluate the convolution sum using the DFT and the IDFT. And we shall then see how to compute the IDFT using a DFT algorithm. And later on, we shall mention the methods for fast Fourier transform. So that is what we shall take up for today. So let's start off with the periodicity property, the first property of the DFT, which is the periodicity property. The periodicity property of DFT. Now what the property states is x of k plus n is equal to x of k for an endpoint DFT. If we have an endpoint DFT, it is the DFT is periodic with period n, and this is something not unexpected because we know that the DFT endpoint DFT is actually giving n samples from a periodic spectrum, and hence it has to be periodic with period n. So now let's try to prove this, prove the property. So by definition, x of n plus k is equal to sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi n. Instead of k, I am having a k plus n divided by n, and this becomes sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi n by n as one term, and the other term is e power minus j 2 pi nk by n. And here n gets cancelled, and e power minus j 2 pi n, n being an integer, is a 1. And hence we have the right hand side as x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi nk by n, which is nothing but x of k. This we know is x of k. And hence we have x of k plus n is equal to x of k. So an endpoint DFT is periodic, and hence we have an endpoint DFT is periodic with period n. So let's take an example. To verify this property. Let's consider the sequence that we had seen in the previous class. So x of n is say 4, 3, 2, 1. And we know that we had computed the 4-point DFT of this sequence, and we got the result as 10, 2 minus 2j, 2, 2 plus 2j. Now what if I try to compute this x of k for larger values of n? So let's take the help of MATLAB. Yes, so here I have a program wherein I am considering a 4-point DFT, and I'm computing the DFT matrix for not just n cross n, but I'm computing it for 3n cross 3n. But in my whole expression, e power minus j 2 pi nk by n remains as 4. So I'm computing the DFT matrix for 4, but I'm actually taking a large size DFT matrix. And then we compute, and then since for matrix multiplication, compatibility in multiplication, I append suitable zeros. So I'm taking a length of 4, but I'm actually converting it to a length of 12. And I try to compute the DFT. So let's see the result. So this is what we have, my input sequence 4321, 4321, a sequence of length 4. And then I'm trying to compute the endpoint DFT, but instead of actual n goes from, k goes from 0 to 3, but I'm computing it for 0 to 12. And let us see, it is periodic. Whatever happens at 4 also happens at 8 and happens at 12. And this is the phase plot of the result. And hence any endpoint DFT is going to be periodic with period n. So if I can represent the same as 2, this becomes 2.8 angle minus 45 to 2.8 angle plus 45. So now if I try to plot the spectrum, since the result is complex, I have to plot the magnitude and the phase plot. So let's try to plot the magnitude plot of this result, K. So at 0, it is 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So because it will also be 10 at 4 and it will also be 10 at 8. So because it's periodic, with period 4. So even though I am given the even though I compute only 4 values, I can sketch the spectrum for any length because of the periodicity. And for n equal to 1, it is 2.8, and it's 2.8 also at n equal to 3. So 2.8, 2.8, 2.8, 2.8. This was 10. This is 2.8, and so on. And for n equal to 2, it is a 2. So I have this spectrum as 2 at n equal to 2. Then similarly, if I sketch my phase plot, the phase plot, what I get is 4, 8, minus 4, minus 8. So at it is 0 at 0. The phase plot being an odd spectrum is always 0 at k equal to 0. At k equal to 1, it is minus 45 degrees. What happens at 1 also happens at 5. And what happens at 1 also happens at minus 3 and minus 7. So minus 45 degrees. And of course, again, it's 0 for n equal k equal to 2. Then we have the phase angle as plus 45 degrees for k equal to 3. And what happens at 3 also happens at 7, happens at minus 1, and happens at minus 5. This is what we have the phase plot as, and then we see that it is periodic, and we can plot the magnitude and the phase plot of the of any given sequence. So now let's move on to another property of the discrete Fourier transform, the second property, which we call it as the property of the conjugate symmetry. Conjugate symmetry for real n. This is a property which is valid only when xn is real. So the property statement is x of n minus k is equal to x conjugate of k. So let's try to prove the property. So we have x of n minus k, and this is given by sigma 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi n. Instead of a k, I have an n minus k divided by n. And this becomes n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi n by n as one term, and the other term is e to the power of j 2 pi nk by n. And once again, n gets cancelled, and hence this term tends to a 1. And what we have is sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of j 2 pi nk by n. And this term I can now write it as, I can put a conjugate symbol here, in which case I need to put a negative sign here, and let us say I put a conjugate here. But suppose xn conjugate is equal to x of n, which happens when xn is real, then this x of n conjugate is same as x of n, and hence I can write it as x of n minus k equal to sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi nk by n whole conjugate. And the quantity within the brackets can now be recognized as x of k, and hence we have x of k conjugate. So this is a property, this is a symmetry property, and which is valid only when x of n is real. So this is very important. Only when x of n is real, we have x of n minus k is equal to x conjugate of k, the symmetry, conjugate symmetry property. And this is not a difficult condition, because for any real signal, x of n has to be real. So it is not trying to impose a hard restriction. So all physical signals, all real time signals are real. So x of n is always real, and hence we have the symmetry property. Because of the symmetry property, what we get is modulus of x of k has an even symmetry. And similarly, the phase angle of x of k has an odd symmetry. and then not symmetry. So let's take up an example for this. So if we recollect our example that we have been taking often, we have taken the case of 4, 3, 2, 1, and we got the 4-point DFT as 10, 2 minus 2j, 2 plus 2j. And what we find is this is x of k, this is x of 1. If I look at it, this is x of 1, and this quantity is nothing but x of n minus 1, because that is an x of 3. And what we have is x of 1 is equal to x of 3 conjugate in this example. So this is how the property reflects itself. So this property can be extended to find the DFT of other. If we have partial result, we can always compute the missing terms by using this property. Let's take one more example to just check the property. Let us consider a sequence x of n as say 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's try to compute the 8-point DFT of the sequence and see whether the symmetry is still valid. Since an 8-point DFT and it is going to be computationally intensive, let's take the help of MATLAB in evaluating the DFT. Let's consider the sequence xn given by 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's try to compute the DFT of x of k given by the DFT of xn, and let us say we want an 8-point DFT. We get the results as 20 minus 5 minus 5 minus 2.4j. Let me write down here. We have the result as 20 minus 5 minus 2.4j. Then we have a 0 minus 1.7 and minus 0.41j minus 1.7 minus 0.41j as the next term. And then we have the term as again a 0. So we have it as a 0, then minus 1.7 plus 0.4j, then a 0 minus 5 plus 2.4j. So this is what we have, the 8-point DFT of a sequence. The sequence is real, and when I have a real sequence, what I'm observing is this quantity x of 1. So I am having x of 1 is equal to x of n minus 1 conjugate, this which is nothing but x of 7 conjugate. So these two are complex conjugates. Similarly, I have this. This is x of 1, x of 2, x of 3. So what I have is x of 3 is equal to x conjugate of n minus 3. That is x conjugate of 5. So this and this are complex conjugates. So this happens only when x of n is real. Now suppose I take, let me extend it and let me take another example. Let's take another example wherein I will consider a sequence say x of n is say 2 plus 3j, 4 plus 5j, 6 plus 7j, 8 plus 9j. So I am taking a sequence which is complex and which does not have the complex conjugate symmetry. So my xn is real, is complex, and let us try to get the 4-point DFT of this sequence and let us see what is the result. I am having my xn as as 2 plus 3j. Say 2 plus 3j, 4 plus 5j, 6 plus 7j, 8 plus 9j. And we know how to compute the 4-point DFT by creating the 4 by 4 DFT matrix and multiplication. But since we have seen such examples and now we want to focus on the properties of DFT, I'm just taking the help of MATLAB in computing the DFT of the sequence x of n, and we need a 4-point DFT. Let's look at the result. Now I have the first term as 20 plus 24j minus 8. So we have the result now as 20 plus 24j. Then the next term minus 8j, minus 4 minus 4j, minus 8j, minus 4 minus 4j, and the last term is minus 8j. What we find here, each of the elements are distinct and there is no conjugate symmetry. There is no conjugate symmetry. Symmetry in the result, and this is because my sequence x of n is not real. It's not real because it's complex, so this is the result. Let's take one more interesting example. Let me take an example wherein I take my xn as complex. I take my xn as complex, but with a complex conjugate symmetry. So let us say 10, 2 minus 3j, 4 minus 5j, 2, 3, 4, 5, say 6 minus 7j, say 5, then 6 plus 7j, 4 plus 5j, 2 plus 3j. So I am taking a sequence of length 8 such that there is a complex. So x of 1 is same as complex conjugate of x of 7, x2 is complex conjugate of x6, and so on. So I am taking an input x of n which is not real. xn is complex but with conjugate symmetry. As given by x of n. X of n is, or if x of I is equal to complex conjugate of x of n minus I. And here let me consider n as 8. Now let us try to compute the 8-point DFT of this sequence, which is complex, but it having a conjugate symmetry. 10, 2 minus. So my xn here is 10, 2 minus 3j, 4 minus 5j, 6 minus 7j, 5, then 6 plus 7j, then 4 plus 5j, then 2 plus 3j. This is my sequence, and let us try to compute the DFT of the sequence xn, an 8-point DFT of the sequence xn. And how is the result? The result is real. That's it. So we took a sequence which was complex but had complex conjugate symmetry, and then when I compute my DFT of this sequence, which is complex, what I find is the DFT is real. So the values are 39, 24, 39, 24, 15, 6.57, 15, 6.57, 14 minus 1, 24. 14 minus 1, 24. So in this case, we are getting our result as real. So now, having seen these examples on complex conjugate symmetry, let's now move to the next property of the discrete Fourier transform, the third property, and this we shall take it up as the convolution sum. So evaluating convolution using DFT. So what we have is, suppose I have a sequence Xn with an impulse response Hn, and the output is given by Yn. And Yn we know is given by the convolution of x of n with h of n. And let us say we assume xn and yn. We assume x of n and h of n are periodic. With period n, where n is given by the length of xl, length of m minus 1. So if they are not periodic, or if they, of course, if both are periodic with the same period n, absolutely no problem. And if they are not periodic, we assume they are periodic with this length, and then we can perform the circular convolution, suitable circular convolution, and still get the result of a real convolution, linear convolution. So we have seen that we can perform a linear convolution using circular convolution. This is something we have seen, and hence, so if I want to perform a circular convolution, both are periodic, of course the property is valid. But suppose they are not periodic and I want to do a linear convolution, I can still perform a circular convolution by appending suitable zero. So now we consider as both xn and hn are periodic, and then we will try to perform their convolution by using the discrete Fourier transform. So let xn has an endpoint DFT of x of k, and similarly let hn have an endpoint DFT of, say, h of k. Then we have y of n is given by y of n. Then we have then let us see what is y of n. Or let us try to compute. Okay, we have y of n given by the convolution, circular convolution, x of n circularly convolved with h of n. Y of n is given by this, and let us see now what is y of k. Y of k is the DFT, endpoint DFT of y of n, and this is given by sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1, y of n e to the power of minus j 2 pi nk by n. This is by definition the discrete Fourier transform of yn. But yn is given by the circular convolution of xn and hn, and so this is given by m equal to 0 to n minus m, x of m, h of n minus m, and e to the power of minus j 2 pi nk by n. So we now have y of k is equal to, let me interchange the orders of summation, m equal to 0 to n minus 1, x of m, then sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1, h of n minus m, and e to the power of minus j 2 pi. I replace n by n minus m, k by n, and because I have added a term, I need to compensate it. So that becomes e to the, I have taken a plus nk, so e to the power of minus j. So e to the power of minus j 2 pi mk by n. And this is this So I have just added a term e power minus j 2 pi mk by n. So I compensated by adding another, by including a term e power minus j 2 pi mk by. So this quantity within the bracket, if I replace n minus n by say some other constant, this whole quantity can be recognized as h of k. And similarly, the remaining sigma m equal to 0, h of k, and then I have m equal to 0 to n minus 1, x of m e to the power of minus j 2 pi mk by n. And this summation is now x of k. So hence we have it as y of k is given by x of k into h of k. So what the property states is convolution in time domain is equivalent to multiplication in the DFT domain, equivalent to multiplication in the discrete Fourier transform domain, DFT domain, or in the frequency domain. So now once I perform, if I want to do a convolution, I can do the take the endpoint DFT, take a product, and then do the inverse, and then I can get back my yn as the IDFT of y of k. So this is the property which helps us evaluate convolution using suitable linear using DFT and IDFT. So let's take a simple example. Of course, we have seen this earlier during convolution, but let's take up now since this is since we are doing DFT now. So let us consider an example. Let us say the aim is to perform a linear convolution of say x of n equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and let us say h of n is 4, 5, 6. And we want to compute the linear convolution. Aim is to compute linear convolution given by x of n convolved with h of n. And both are non-periodic and they are not of the same length. But I am going to compute it, let us say we compute it using DFT. So as the first step, what we will do is we will compute x of k, which is in this case I have 4 plus, I need to first compute n. So 4 plus 3 minus 1, that is 6. So my n becomes 6 in this example. So I need to compute x of k, which is a 6-point DFT of x of n. And then similarly, I also compute h of k, which is also a 6-point DFT of h of n. And then I will take the product. I will compute the product y of k, which is given by x of k into h of k. And then I will do an IDFT. I'll get my yn as the inverse DFT of yn. Of yk, I will get yn. So let us first compute the 6-point DFT of x of n. And what is my x of n? 1, 2, 3, 4. So my x of n is 1, 2, 3, 4. And my hn is 4, 5, 6. And let me compute x of k, which is given by the DFT of x of n, but I need a 6-point DFT. I need a 6-point DFT. Let's see the result. So I have the result as 3, minus 3.5, minus 4.33J, 2.5, 8.866J, and so on. Similarly, let me compute h of k given by the 6-point DFT of h of n. And then I get a result, say 15, 3.5, minus 9.2 minus 1.5.866j and so on. Then I compute my yk, which is given by the product of x of k and h of k. So it is a pointwise multiplication, and this is what I get. So 10 into the first term is 10 into 10 into 15, and that's what I have, 150, and here there's a 10 power minus 2. This is a term. So this is what I got, yk as the product of x of k and h of k. Now to get my convolve result yn, I need to compute the inverse DFT of yk. But again, since I'm doing a 6-point, I need to do a 6-point inverse DFT. And what's the result I get? I'm getting my inverse DFT as 4, 13, 28, 43, 38, 24. Let us do the convolution of the same sequence, xn convolve with h of n, and let us see if we get the same result. We get exactly the same result, 4, 13, 28, 43, 38, 24. So both methods give us the same result. So I will not copy all of them. So then finally we have the result. We have the result as 8, 14, 28, 43, 28, 43, 38, 24. So this method may look very involved and roundabout, but actually when we have efficient methods for computing the DFT, it turns out that this method of actually performing convolution by moving into the frequency domain and performing the product and then computing the inverse, it results in a faster computation as compared to the time domain convolution directly in the time domain. We will take up examples for this later on when we read fast algorithms for computing the discrete Fourier transform. So next, moving on, we take the next property, the fourth property of DFT, wherein we can compute an inverse DFT using an algorithm which performs DFT. So what we have is we have x of n, the inverse DFT is given by 1 by n sigma k equal to 0 to n minus 1 of j k by n. This is by definition the expression for the inverse DFT, 1 by n sigma. So I have an x of k and I can get the inverse DFT. Let me just make small changes in this. So let me write this as sigma k equal to 0 to n minus 1. Let me put a conjugate for all the term. So x conjugate of k e to the power of minus j 2 pi nk by n. So I'm putting a conjugate within the bracket and outside, so they get cancelled. So I have not done anything. I'm taking the conjugate twice. Now what is the advantage we get by doing this? What we have is the quantity within the bracket x conjugate of k sigma e power minus j 2 pi nk by n. We recognize it as the discrete Fourier transform of x conjugate of k. So now this we have just taken conjugate twice, and this is what we get. So now how do I interpret this result? If I am given x of k, I take the conjugate, I compute the discrete Fourier transform, and then I perform once more a complex conjugate, and then I divide it by n, and I get back my x of n. So translating the above result, so to perform IDFT. So we want to perform an inverse discrete Fourier transform. What we need to take inverse discrete Fourier transform of say x of k. Inverse discrete Fourier transform of x of k. What I need to do is I need to take the complex conjugate. I conjugate my input and then I compute the DFT. I compute the DFT of the complex conjugate. Whatever result I get, again I conjugate. I perform a conjugate and then I divide it by 1 by n, and what I get, my result is my x of n. Now what is the advantage of this property is, if I have a block or if I have an algorithm which performs a DFT computation using the same block, by simply making changes before and after the algorithm, I can use the same block of code to actually implement inverse DFT. So that is the whole advantage. I need not go and make any changes within the program or within my algorithm. So doing small external changes, required changes, I can get an IDFT using the DFT algorithm. So let's take an example. Let's take an example for this property. So we have seen that x of n, say 4, 3, 2, 1, has a Fourier transform, the 4-point DFT given by 10, 2 minus 2j, 2, 2 plus 2j. Now let me try to do the inverse DFT of this. Let's change my problem statement as obtain the inverse DFT of x of k. So what I will do now is I will first take the complex conjugate of x of k. So I take my complex conjugate of x of k, and what is that? 10, 2 plus 2j, 2, 2 minus 2j. I take a complex conjugate of my x of k, and then I try to get the 4-point DFT of this. So let me try to do the 4-point DFT of this. So how do I do the 4-point DFT? I need to 1, and what is my first row? Minus j, minus 1 plus j, and this is same as my first row and first column are same. This is plus 1, minus 1, minus 1, and this is a minus 3. This is a computation by using the DFT matrix. We have seen it in the previous module. And so now let me compute 10, 2 plus 2j, 2, and 2 minus 2j. And this is going to give me the DFT of x conjugate k. And what I get now is this 16, 12, 8, and 4. So when I do the multiplication, I get the result as 16, 12, 8, and 4. In this case, the result is real. Otherwise, I need to take the conjugate. And after computing the DFT, what should we do? We need to get my inverse DFT, I need to take the conjugate of this result, 16, 12, 8, 4, and then divide the whole result by n, which is 4, and that becomes 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is what we have. So so without doing, I use the same DFT matrix. So I did not change my matrix. This we recognize as the 4-point DFT matrix. I use the same 4-point DFT matrix and compute the DFT of the complex conjugate of the sequence which I'm supposed to get. And that result, again, I need to complex conjugate. Of course, in this example, it is real. But then I divide the result by n, and then I get back my original sequence xn. So this is another huge advantage as far as DFT is concerned, because for DFT and IDFT I can use the same algorithm. There is no need to have a separate algorithm for performing IDFT. The next property of DFT is efficient algorithms for computing DFT. And there are a lot of algorithms depending on n, but we shall take up only the case where n is the power of 2. So if I can express n as a power of 2, then we have algorithms. The discrete decimation in time fast Fourier transform algorithm, and the decimation in frequency fast Fourier transform algorithm. These are two methods which are applicable when n is a power of 2. And these methods are actually methods for computing the discrete Fourier transform, but they do it computationally efficient. Or they actually use fewer number of multipliers and hence they are fast. So they are known as the fast Fourier transform algorithm, and this is known as the FFT or the fast Fourier transform. So we shall take up each of these methods of evaluating the DFT in an efficient manner in the next module. So we'll take up DIT FFT in one module, the DIF FFT in another module, and then we'll take a few examples on both of them. So thank you.